What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Clutch Finisher. Today, I'm starting a new series, Top Fighters by Region. North America, Russia, Brazil, Europe. Each region gets its own video, and we're going to build the list one by one. Now, quick disclaimer before the comments go to war. My criteria here is a mix of dominance, championships, quality of opposition, and impact on the sport. That means some picks are here because they were unbeatable in their era, and some are here because they changed the entire game. And we're starting with a country that originally had the deepest combat sports pipeline in MMA history, Brazil. At number 5, I'm going with Charles Do Bronx Oliveira. If you want a modern resume that's backed by numbers, Oliveira is one of the easiest picks you can make because he literally sits at the top of the UFC record books. He holds the UFC all-time record for most finishes with 21 and the UFC all-time record for most submission wins with 17. That is not a small thing in a sport where everyone is elite and everyone is dangerous. And this isn't padding stats against weak competition. He did it while fighting in one of the most stacked divisions in the sport, and he also became UFC lightweight champion. What makes Oliveira special is that he's dangerous everywhere. He can hurt you standing, he can swarm in transitions, and once he gets you into grappling exchanges, he attacks like he's chasing a finish every second. At number 4, I've got Alex Pereira. On paper, Pereira's rise is ridiculous. He became UFC champion at middleweight, then went up and won UFC gold at light heavyweight too. And the key word here is fast. He got to the second belt in a tiny number of UFC fights compared to almost anyone else who's ever done it. Now, I do want to add a caveat here. The UFC clearly fast-tracked him. He got title opportunities much sooner than almost any fighter ever would. And that's partly because the UFC's promotion and matchmaking were built around a huge storyline and a superstar level striking style that sells. So if you're the kind of fan who values a long contender run, you can absolutely critique the speed of his path. But even with that caveat, you still have to credit what he did once he got those chances. He won the middleweight title by stopping Israel Adesanya at UFC 281, and he won the UFC light heavyweight title by stopping Yuri Prohaska at UFC 295 in a title fight main event under real pressure against an elite finisher. And the real reason his striking translates so cleanly is that he wasn't just a striker who used to kickbox. He came in with world champion kickboxing credentials, including being a simultaneous glory champion in 2 weight classes. That kind of background shows up in his timing, his composure, and how calm he looks even when chaos is happening. At number 3, Royce Gracie. This isn't about being the most athletic fighter ever. This is about impact. Royce won UFC 1, UFC 2, and UFC 4 in the original tournament format where weight classes basically didn't exist. He didn't just win, he forced the world to accept a truth. If you can't grapple, you can't fight. Entire gyms, entire training systems, and honestly, the modern concept of MMA well-roundedness, it accelerates after what Royce showed on the biggest stage. So, if your definition of top includes who changed the sport, Royce is non-negotiable. At number 2, Jose Aldo. Aldo's case is simple, sustained greatness. He is credited with 7 successful UFC featherweight title defenses, which is the most in UFC featherweight history, and he's a UFC Hall of Famer. The reason Aldo is so respected isn't one moment. It's that he stayed elite across multiple eras with a style that mixed explosive offense and elite defensive awareness. You don't have to call him the greatest ever to admit this. Prime Aldo is one of the highest peaks we've ever seen at 145. Now, before I reveal my number 1, I have to say this. Brazil is too stacked to keep it to only 5. So here are a few honorable mentions that could absolutely be top 5 depending on your criteria. Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Big Nog has one of the cleanest across eras heavyweight resumes you can have. He became the first Pride heavyweight champion and later became an interim UFC heavyweight champion, which is why his name still belongs in any serious Brazil discussion. Vanderlei Silva is a Pride era icon whose style defined a whole era of pressure and violence. Shogun Rua has the rare combination of being a Pride Grand Prix winner and a UFC champion, an era-bridging resume that matters when you're judging a greatness historically. Fabricio Verdum belongs here for becoming UFC heavyweight champion and for having an elite submission-based heavyweight resume at the highest level. And Vitor Belfort is one of the most important multi-era names in UFC history and is recognized in the UFC Hall of Fame Pioneer Wing. Alright, at number 1, Anderson the Spider Silva. He has the kind of resume that still feels unreal. 10 successful UFC middleweight title defenses and the longest UFC title reign at 2,457 days. On top of that, he is also tied with Islam Makhachev for the longest win streak in UFC history at 16 straight UFC wins. That combination, longevity, dominance, and consistency almost never happens. And this isn't just about statistics, it's about how he did it. He wasn't just winning, he was making world-class fighters look like they were guessing. That's the difference between a champion and a phenomenon. If someone asks, what did Brazilian MMA look like at its most untouchable? Anderson Silva is one of the best answers you can give. Alright, this is my starting top 5 from Brazil. If you disagree, don't just name drop. Tell me who you remove and why, and what criteria you're using. Dominance, titles, longevity, or impact. Next episode, pick the region you want. North America, Russia, Europe, or somewhere else. And I'll build the next top 5 the same way. If you guys like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe to my friend Mythic Musa. He makes amazing videos. And until next time, I'm Clutch Finisher, and I'm out.